Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika 'ilman wa ta'liman innaka 'ala kulli shay'in qadir. So it says the obligatory portions of inheritance. So this is a bit of a difficult word to translate. It's called fara'id, right? So fara'id, farida, fard, like obligatory. So that's why it's translated the obligatory portions of inheritance. But that's not what it means. Farida means fixed portions of inheritance. Okay, so there's a wasiyah, which is up to you, right? You die and you say, when I die, I want 1/5 of my wealth to go to people who look after in birds that are endangered in Singapore. And I want 1/8 of my property to go to my friend Derek, right? Who's non-Muslim. So that's called wasiyah. So you're free in your wasiyah. Fara'id, you're not free. Right? That's what it's called. Fara'id, the fixed appointment, not obligatory portions. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا ابن شهاب عن قبيصة بن ذؤيب أن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه فرض للجد الذي يفرض له الناس اليوم. So here we've seen this before in the Muwatta, that Imam Malik is trying to talk about issues of contention. So remember the very beginning thing was, when do you pray Asr? So he didn't start with when you pray Dhuhr, because you go and ask a kid in ancient Baghdad, when do you pray Dhuhr? It's like, pray Dhuhr, after half of the day. Because they used to sing the sun, and it's like obvious. So everybody knows when you pray Dhuhr. Everybody knows when you pray Maghrib. Oh yeah, Muslims, I lived in India for 20 years. Those Muslims, they pray when the sun sets. So Imam Malik is not going to talk about things that are obvious and not points of contention. He talks about issues that are points of contention, right? So here there's a problem, which is how on earth do you deal with the grandfather, right? So I die, okay? My father has already passed away, and my son, I don't have any sons, or my sons have passed away. Then I have brothers, and then I have my grandfather, right? How does it work? Because my brothers and my grandfather, they have the same distance from me, right? They are one step away from me, right? I connect to my brothers through my father. I connect to my grandfather through my father. So they have the same distance from me. So how does it work out? Do we treat them all the same? Or do we treat the grandfather as a father? So with the father himself, what will happen is the father will be in one of two scenarios. He'll either get a third or a sixth, or he'll get the rest. But he never doesn't get anything. Whereas the brothers, they might not get anything. Like if somebody died right now, I die, what will happen is an eighth of my inheritance, an eighth of my inheritance will go to my wife, and the rest will go to my kids, and that's it. That's it. It just stops there. My brothers don't get anything because my kids are closer to me than my brothers. So the brothers don't get anything. So the scenarios, so do we treat the brother like that? Do we treat the grandfather like the father, because he's kind of like a father? And in many issues of fiqh, he's treated exactly as a father, right? Like you can call him, this is my son, meaning my grandson, right? Or my nephew. This is my dad, meaning actually I mean my granddad, right? In Shafi fiqh, for example, nobody can force a virgin girl to get married apart from the father and the grandfather. So they have this khasiyah, they have something special about them that is unique. So how does it work? The Sahaba disagreed. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and the Kufans, they said he's like the dad, right? And that's what's going to be applied today in India, well, most places in India that have Hanafi fiqh, Pakistan, part of the law, the Levant, right? They're going to follow Hanafi fiqh for the family law. So in the Levant, meaning Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Turkey, even Egypt, right? Even though they're majority Shafi'i, but they're actually the law is from the Ottoman law, so it's still like that, right? So they're going to treat the grandfather as if he was the father, right? Whereas for the Shafi'is and the Malikis and Hanbalis, it's a bit different. We kind of actually I believe the Hanbalis they do the same as these as well. But for the Shafi'is and the Malikis here, it's it's a nuanced thing where he's kind of like a brother, but not exactly. So it says Malik informed us. So the point is he's talking about the most key point of contention. So it says Malik informed us from Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, informed us from Qabisa ibn Dhu'ayb that Umar ibn Khattab. So Qabisa, afwan, Qabisa. This is one of the fuqaha sab'a, one of the great seven fuqaha of Medina. That Umar ibn Khattab assigned the obligatory portion to a grandfather, which people assign to him today. So what we do in Medina now is what Sayyidina Umar did. I don't know what you guys are doing, right? That's what they're saying. Same thing. The way we pray Asr today in Medina, this is how they did at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. I don't know what you guys in Iraq are doing, right? So he says قال محمد وبه نأخذ في الجد وهو قول زيد بن ثابت وبه يقول العامة أما أبو حنيفة فإنه كان يأخذ في الجد بقول أبي بكر الصديق وعبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهم فلا يورث الإخوة معه شيئا. Right? So I believe this is also position of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, but it doesn't mention it here. So anyway, so here we see that Imam Muhammad is actually jumping camps. He's actually departing from the Kufans totally, right? Just like he did with alcohol as well. Imam Muhammad has the same position as us for alcohol, right? Anything that can get you drunk is haram and najas and bad, right? Whereas the Kufans, they said no, it's as long as it doesn't get you drunk, as long, etc. So they had that different opinion. Imam Muhammad says we adhere to this with respect to the grandfather, and it is the verdict of Zayd ibn Thabit, who is a Kufan, Medinan, right? So this is Zayd ibn Thabit. He's in Medina, and his fatwa are used in Medina, right? And you know, yeah, and it's worth noting as well. That it's not just which Sahabi; it's also which age. So Zayd ibn Thabit was very young, right? Whereas Abdullah Mas'ud is like a generation older than him, right? Okay, and as we remind ourselves as well that Ali al-Madini in the beginning of his Kitab al-Ilal, he mentions the madhahib of the Salaf. So you say, I'm Salafi, I don't have a madhab. Well, Ali al-Madini, the Shaykh of Imam Bukhari, mentioned the madhahib of the Salaf. And he said that Zayd ibn Thabit had a madhab. And he had ashab, yadhabuna madhabahu, he had students, right? That who went in his way. Yuftuna bifatwahu, right? وَيَذْهَبُونَ مَذْهَبَهُ. They give his fatwa according to his fatwa, and they go in his way, right? And he mentions that, for example, Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, right? One of the great kind of contemporaries of Imam Ahmad and that generation of scholars, a great hadith scholar. He was of the madhab of Medina, i.e. he's Maliki. So the Salafis, they have this idea that the way they paint it is like this. Imam Shafi's usul is the way that all, which is you follow Sahih Hadith, Qiyas, consensus, Quran, right? That's the only way that all the Salaf understood things. And the Salaf, they only disagreed because they didn't all know Sahih Hadiths. And the Salaf had one way of analyzing Hadith. And so if you want to follow the way of Salaf, just follow Sahih Hadiths. And Sahih Hadiths apparently can only be understood in one way or something like that, right? Which is another thing as well. So it's very simplified, right? And they'll quote, for example, look, this this person didn't know a hadith, and so when he heard the hadith, he immediately followed it. It's not like that. And there's many cases that are opposite. So number one, the Salaf, did have madhabs. They did not have madhabs. Number two, they did not all follow Imam Shafi's usul, obviously, because Imam Shafi's usul are his usul, and they are not the same usul as Imam Ahmad or the Imam Abu Hanifa or anybody else, right? So they are unique, and it's one way of looking at things, right? They did not, this it's they didn't all agree because the nature of the things, it wasn't just because they didn't know a hadith, right? The only reason why Imam Abu Hanifa didn't say you can join prayers is because he didn't know the hadith. Had he known the hadith, it's not like that at all. Right? It's not like that at all. So here we see there's no hadith on this issue to begin with, an issue of ijtihad, and the ijtihad of Zayd ibn Thabit as a Madini, right, is one thing, and the ijtihad of Imam Abu Hanifa is something else. Even though Imam Abu Hanifa was aware of the other things, he didn't change. Imam Ahmad is taking a position from another camp. He's Kufan, but he's taking a position from the Medinas. As for Imam Abu Hanifa, with respect to the grandfather, he used to adhere to the verdict of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Abdullah ibn Abbas, and he would not assign any portion to the inheritance to siblings along with him, because he's like the dad, right? So the dad would block the brothers, same thing, the granddad just blocks the brothers. So when you say the verdict of Zayd ibn Thabit, it's actually a bit nuanced. It's not that simple. It's not like he's just one of the brothers. It's not the same. Okay. خير. Then he says أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا ابن شهاب عن عثمان بن إسحاق بن خرشة عن قبيصة بن ذؤيب أنه قال جاءت الجدة إلى أبي بكر تسأله ميراثها فقال ما لك في كتاب الله من شيء وما علمنا لك في سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا فارجعي حتى أسأل الناس قال فسأل الناس فقال المغيرة بن شعبة حضرت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعطاها السدس فقال هل معك غيرك فقال محمد بن مسلمة فقال مثل ذلك فأنفذه لها أبو بكر ثم جاءت الجدة الأخرى إلى عمر بن الخطاب تسأل ميراثها فقال ما لك في كتاب الله من شيء وما كان القضاء الذي قضي به إلا لغيرك وما أنا بزائد في الفرائض من شيء ولكن هو ذلك السدس فإن اجتمعتا فيه فهو بينكما وأيكما خلت به فهو لها. So it says Malik informed us from Ibn Shihab, from Uthman ibn Ishaq ibn Kharashata, that Qabisa ibn Dhu'ayb said, a grandmother, right, came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. So by default, when we say grandmother, we mean the mother of the father, right? But we can also mean the mother of the mother. When we say grandson, we mean the son of the son, because the son of the daughter does not inherit. Okay, so the grandmother came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq asking for her portion of the inheritance. And so he said to her, there is nothing for you in the book of Allah, and we know of nothing for you in the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So go away until I ask people. So concept, did the Sahabi, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, know every single thing the Prophet ﷺ ever said and didn't say? The answer is no. So the mujtahid cannot give ijtihad cannot give a fatwa until you do ijtihad, meaning you need to know all the information. So go and know all the information, then come back and answer. So go away until I ask people. He asked people, and Mughira ibn Shu'bah said, I was present when the Prophet ﷺ assigned for her a sixth. And he, Abu Bakr, asked, is there anybody else with you? So now you come along and you say, the Salaf followed Sahih Hadiths. Okay, well, here's a Sahih Hadith, and Imam Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Abu Bakr is not going to follow it. So in a Sahih Hadith, we do not ask for you to have two people narrating the Hadith. We ask you to narrate one person who's reliable to narrate the Hadith. So if the Salaf understood things as we understand things, as Shafi'is, meaning here's somebody who's reliable, narrating from somebody who's reliable, so somebody who's reliable, khalas, and you have to apply it. Here, Imam Sayyidina Abu Bakr didn't do that. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, the Zahir, what is apparent from Sayyidina Abu Bakr, is that he does not accept a Sahih Hadith, and it's narrated by two people. So somebody comes along and says the Salaf all looked at things in one way. That's not true. It's not true. And there's other examples saying Umar doing the same thing, right? And it's some of the Mu'tazila say that. So the Mu'tazila say you can only act upon a hadith if it's narrated by two people, right? So the Salaf did not have one methodology of analyzing the revelation. The madhahib are a result of that process of coming up with a system. And those systems are relative, meaning I have a system, you have another system. But they are objective, meaning we apply the system, we get a conclusion, right? But they are relative, right? You want to do homeschooling. I don't want to do homeschooling. That's how people think. Homeschooling is bad for these reasons, good for these reasons. This kind of education is good for that reason, except this is how it is. It's just the nature of things. So they want to have this very simplistic way, and it's nice for the layman to have things simple. That's why Salafism is very attractive for the layman. Simple. ChatGPT, are there any Sahih hadiths that say that trading in this kind of currency is haram? No. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Right? It makes it very easy. I don't have to follow any complex system. But the issue is, it is a complex system. So therefore, you have to follow a complex system. And he said the like of that, and so Abu Bakr executed that for her. Later, the grandmother or another grandmother came to Umar al-Khattab, asking him for her portion of the inheritance. And he said, "There is nothing for you in the book of Allah, and that judgment was passed was for someone other than you, i.e., so is it the maternal mother or is it the right? So there's the mother of the father, the mother of the father, and the mother of the mother. And I do not intend to add anything to the fixed portions of inheritance, but it is that sixth. If both of you coincide, then it is between you, and if either of you remains, then it is for her." Right? So Imam Muhammad says, قال محمد وبهذا نأخذ إذا اجتمعت الجدتان أم الأم وأم الأب فالسدس بينهما وإن خلت به إحداهما فهو لها ولا ترث معها جدة فوقها وهو قول أبي حنيفة والعامة من فقهائنا. This is Imam Muhammad says, we adhere to this when both grandmothers are present. When both grandmothers are present, the mother side and the father side. And the mother's mother and the father's mother, right? Then the sixth is to be divided between them. And if only one of them, so they don't get a sixth each, right? So because you can only get one mother, there's no issue of, so a mother gets a mother will get a sixth as well, right? So there's no mother to begin with. And so now we're going to treat the grandmothers as mothers, but there's only one of them. And yeah, if only one of them remains, then it's for her and no other grandmother. So if there's a great grandmother or a great great grandmother, then then she won't inherit anything. That is the verdict of Imam Abu Hanifa and our fuqaha in general. May Allah have mercy on them. Right? Yeah. And Imam Shafi, just a thing of grandmothers, Imam Shafi, he said, I met a 20-year-old grandmother in Sana'a. Right? So obviously getting pregnant at 9 and giving birth at 10 is not an easy thing to do. But we live a life where it's kind of funny, right? People get married mid-20s, mid-30s, right? Whereas if you get married in your teens, that is the time to have children, right? It is in your teens. It's much easier. And so, someone get married at 15, and then her daughter gets married at 15, and her daughter got married at 15. So you are 45, and you're a great grandchild, no. So when you're 30, you're a grandmother, is that right? When you were 31, you were a grandmother, and at 46, you're a great grandmother, and at 61, you are a great grandmother, right? And at 75 or 76, you are a great grandmother, right? Okay. So now he's going, so he's not going through, he's not trying to tell us the normal discussions. He's trying to talk about the discussions that are not so easy. Okay, so he says so it says mirathul amma, inheritance of the paternal aunt. It says أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا محمد بن أبي بكر بن عمرو بن حزم أنه كان يسمع أباه كثيرا يقول كان عمر بن الخطاب يقول عجبا للعمة تورث ولا ترث. Right. So he says, Malik informed us that Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Hazm informed us that he would often used to hear his father saying, Umar al-Khattab used to say, it is astonishing that the paternal aunt is inherited from, but she does not inherit. Okay, so so when you go to, in general, the aunt and the niece will not really inherit at all, right? That's the default. So how am I connected to my aunt? Through my dad's sister. So my dad's sister, and I die, and then she inherits from me. So how could she inherit from me? So it would be like this. I die, and I don't have any kids to inherit from me, and I don't have any my parents inherit from me, and I don't have any brothers to inherit from me. So now what's going to happen is my tribe is my dad's side. They will inherit from me. So now I'm going to go to, so it goes son, father, brother. Okay, now I'm going to go to my right? To my dad's brother. Now they're going to get the rest. So what will happen is that Amma will inherit if she's with my uncles. So I have, let's say for example, inshallah, Allah give them Iman. So Uncle Andy, my dad's brother, Auntie Jane, Auntie Penny. Okay, so they all become Muslim, and I don't have any kids to inherit from me, and I don't have any parents to inherit from me, and I don't have my dad to inherit from me, and I don't have any brothers. So in which case now, Uncle Andy, Auntie Penny, Auntie Jane, they're going to get the rest. But what about this? Would Auntie Penny or Auntie Jane, would they ever get anything if they were just by themselves and Uncle Andy was not there? The answer is no. So, تورث ولا ترث. So he says, it's astonishing the paternal aunt is inherited from, but she does not inherit. Now, how could she be inherited from? She could be inherited from. So that means, how could the nephew, how could I inherit from my aunt? I'm just trying to think.
Who doesn't have children?
Let's say it again, Sir Muhammad.
She, if she doesn't have children,
No, but could that she if she doesn't have, I'm trying to think, she doesn't have children. So she is my dad's brother. So I am her nephew. Um, so she doesn't have kids, she doesn't have a parent. My dad is not there. I could inherit from her, yeah. So it isn't so la terith. So I can inherit from her. It's easier to inherit. It's easier to inherit from your aunt than it is for her to inherit from you, because in her to inherit from you, a lot of people have to be dead, which is the same case with inheriting from your aunt. But on top of that, she has to have brothers of her same level with her, because as an aunt, she doesn't, that's not a category. Aunt is not a category. But getting the rest as part of the family is, and that has to be through the men. So that's the point there. Allahu Alam. Um, so I'll just give you another example like that. I die leaving behind my daughter, my granddaughter, and my grandson. Okay, so I had a son, Khalid. Khalid passes away, leaving his daughter and son. So they're my grandchildren through my son. So now what's going to happen is they're going to get the rest. Okay, now my daughter, she's going to get a half. So what will happen is I'll give a half to my daughter, and then the rest, which is a half, will go to my grandchildren. That's not a very good example because it's the same. I'm just trying to think. Go to my grandchildren, and they will divide it as a 1-to-2 ratio. So my granddaughter will end up getting a third of a half, which is a sixth. So I'm just speaking aloud here. She will get the same if my grandson was not there. Trying to think of another example. But there's certain scenarios where by having a brother you would inherit, and if you didn't have a brother you wouldn't inherit because you inherit with him. Um, And there's also another scenario which doesn't make sense here. So it says, عَجَبَ الْعَمَّ تُورَثُ وَلَا تَرِث. She can inherit because what can happen with her is she will be if somebody died leaving behind a daughter and a sister, then the sister will get the rest. Oh yeah. So in respect to me, she's my sister. That's true. She's not my amma. In respect to my daughter, it is my amma. Right? So that is slightly different. Anyway, that is a general picture. So it says قال محمد إنما يعني عمر هذا فيما نرى أنها أنها ترث أنها أنها ترث لأن ابن الأخ ذو سهم ولا ترث لأنها ليست بذات سهم أنها تورث I think it is there's a wow dropped here she is inherited from because the son of the brother will get something ولا ترث she doesn't inherit لأنها ليست بذات سهم because she doesn't have a fixed share ونحن نروي عن عمر الخطاب وعلي بن أبي طالب وعبد الله بن مسعود أنهم قالوا في العمة والخالة إذا لم يكن ذو سهم ولا عصبة فللخالة الثلث وللعمة الثلثان وحديث يرويه أهل المدينة لا يستطيعون رده أن ثابت بن الدحداح مات ولا وارث له فأعطى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أبا لبانة بن المنذر وكان ابن أخته ميراثه وكان ابن شهاب يورث العم والخالة وذوي القربات بقربتهم وكان من أفقه أهل المدينة وأعلمهم بالرواية. So Imam Muhammad says, our view, and he says, Allah knows best. Our view is that Umar meant that this is she inherited because the son of her brother has a fixed share of her. So she is inherited from. She is inherited from. أنها تورث not ترث. So she is inherited from. That's what it there because the son of her brother has a fixed share of her estate. But she does not inherit because she is not one of fixed share. Okay. As we mentioned, it's not so easy for her nephew to inherit from her. We narrate, so he doesn't have a fixed share in that she dies with kids. He's not going to get anything, nor is her brother going to get anything. We narrate from Umar al-Khattab, Ali ibn Abi Talib, or Abdullah ibn Mas'ud that they said concerning the paternal aunt and the maternal aunt in the case where there's none of those relatives who are due fixed shares, fixed portions of inheritance, nor male relatives who would inherit in the absence of those, that the maternal aunt receives a third and the paternal aunt receives two-thirds. So how does this work? Um, the Hanafis, and I believe the Hanbalis as well, they have this concept which is called as uh, what's it called? Al-Arham. It's called something Arham. Dhawil Arham. So Dhawil Arham, the people who are close. So what they will do is what happens when there's not enough people to inherit from you? Or what happens when there's more excess? Then what they do is they basically extend the relations. So they will say, well, um, the Amma, right, is like a mother, like the Amma is like your Am, or is connected to you through your dad. And the khala is connected to you for your mother. So let's imagine your dad and mum were there. Wouldn't your dad get twice as much as your mum? You know, in many scenarios, wouldn't it be like that? So they kind of extend it that way, right? Whereas the Shafis, we don't have that, right? We don't have that. That doesn't exist. So the Shafis, we say, when there's nobody to inherit, you just give it to the state, right? Okay. So he says, they, the people of Medina, are unable to refute the hadith which the people of Medina themselves narrate, that Thabit ibn al-Dahdah died without anyone to inherit from him. And so the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave Abu Lubana ibn Mundhir, who was the son of his sister, the son of his sister, the estate, which is the nephew, right? Son of his nephew. Ibn Shihab used to assign a portion of the inheritance. So the analogy then is if you're going to give something to the nephew, then you're going to give something to the aunt because it's the same relationship. Um, he was the one of the most, so he said that Ibn Shihab, the teacher of Imam Malik, used to assign a portion of the inheritance to the paternal and maternal aunts and close relatives because of their relationship. That was his fatwa. And he was one of the most knowledgeable in fiqh of people in Medina and the most knowledgeable concerning narration. Inshallah, we will come back to um, this inshallah next week. Inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.